So we've discussed Nisim before, miraculous events, and certainly I think that we can talk about in the general theory of how this works. It doesn't always have to be as clean a case as what you see with Moshe. What you see with Moshe is one individual at one moment in time making this public declaration before a crowd. Here's how Hashem's word will be tested by exactly these parameters. And then now wait and see what happens. And, no sooner did he finish speaking than bang, the trap door opens. So if you're Moshe Rabbeinu, then you either have the confidence or the knowledge or both to make those kinds of gambles and win. But I don't think that all the instances where you sort of, where you hear the voice of Hashem in the events of the world are as clear-cut as that. Maybe some of them in our own individual lives can be, in the sense that when we're not standing in front of a crowd, we don't have to draw as much on the bank of needing to be a prophet of the caliber of Moshe in order for something very surprising to happen, because we can be individually very surprised much more easily because we have a lot more details of our own lives to check against things, and we can see things that only we realize about our lives, kind of in the style of Tamar and Yehuda, where Tamar hands Yehuda his staff and seal and cord, and only he knows what it means, right? So there's that element. There's the individual experience of the voice of Hashem, where we can be stunned by things that happen personally to us, where we see Hashem's hand or we hear his voice loud and clear because we have some kind of password that he's like thrown back to us that only we know. And then it's as though it's like the earth is opened under us, except everyone else is just kind of going about their business around us. And they don't realize what a stunning moment this is for one individual with a unique access to certain information. So that's like at the individual level, how something like this can work. And you see that with Yosef Tzaddik, we've talked about before, with the spices of the Yishmaelim and the same spices that Yaakov sends and other things. The Torah looks at this issue elsewhere. But then, if you're talking about national history, I think that if we're talking about other instances in Tanakh, clearly the voice and the style and the tone that the Tanakh takes when talking about these things, we have Kriyat Yam Suf, and we have these, recapitulations of Kriyat Yam Suf, like with Chizkiyahu dealing with Rav Shakeh at the gates of Yerushalayim, and the whole army of Sennacherib is destroyed by a plague in one night, where the Tanakh is going to talk about events in ways that emphasize the grandeur of the voice of Hashem, because you have a prophet like Yeshayahu who can step in and say, here's what Hashem said, and look, it happens. If we talk about 1967, if we talk about the Shah, like the War of Independence or things like that, I don't think it's as clear, who was exactly standing on a hilltop and saying, let Avinu Shabashabayim, bear witness and intervene and show that, like, we have come to reclaim our land, and to keep his Torah here, and these people have come here to defile it, and so now give us victory. Maybe someone said that. It's not certainly how we tend to talk about that history now, but I think it's also not fair to say that there was no such sense in which that attitude reigned to any degree, even despite the fact that it was a very secular Jewish society for the most part during those two historic moments in the last century. Who could avoid noticing that for the first time in almost 2,000 years, Am Yisrael were gathering back into their land? And that this was kind of a moment of the fulfillment of prophecy. And that was an idea on the lips of every Jew during the period of the founding of the State of Israel in its early years, even if maybe most of the people who were inspired by the poetry of that didn't necessarily feel strongly that they could take it to the bank. There obviously were always some but there were plenty of others who may have found it inspiring and nonetheless didn't feel sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could be relied on, so to speak. But when there's enough of an attitude of that kind, which there was, I think when you look at the victories of 48 and 67, it's hard not to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu putting his signature on things in the same way that he did with Moshe and Korach, with Pi Haaretz. And I don't think this means that we can just get so much more magical help if we start constantly declaring, well, if indeed HaKadosh Baruch Hu is on our side, then let us miraculously win this battle and that one, and then we'll get it even more easily in the style of Korach, because as we learned from Chazal, and as was also almost commonsensical from reading Tanakh, you'd really better make sure that you have enough credit in your account before you write that check, meaning that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is concerned with the merits of Am Yisrael and his brit with us, but he's also concerned with our demerits and our failings and when we need to be taught a lesson. And so it's not at all to be taken for granted that all of this means that actually, without having to turn towards him and his Torah and all those other things and do that in the right way, that we get all the backing that a master and king of the universe can provide if he wants to. So yeah, I think you definitely can look for this in historical events, but I think that's always tempered by the degree to which the facts of the historical moment are much grayer than the black and white situation that Torah gives us seemingly with Moshe and Korach.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.